Retro Warriors episode 465.
Woo!
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human Chris Saturn.
Hello.
And Andrew.
As always.
As always, Andrew is here secretly listening but never speaking, because if he does, I'll yell at him.
Why whisper?
But
very quietly
to himself.
into the microphone. Yeah.
we have rescinded the yelling mandate for this one episode only. And for every other episode, he has to go back to shutting up or I'll yell at him.
For just to give a heads up on housekeeping, our pre-show was 40 minutes almost.
Yes.
And there's been some issues, and we think we're good now. But because of the issues, Justin is speaking through his microphone. Everybody's hearing him fine, but Andrew and I aren't. We're hearing him through a phone.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives the impression that Andrew and I are talking to an old-time radio broadcast.
Well, we use the backup, like strings to a cup.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking to.
Yeah.
Justin.
Andrew, while you were in the bathroom, I realized I could hook my good mic up to my phone, and then I would sound totally fine to y'all. But Saturn and I made the executive decision not to do that this episode.
Hey, we've come too
You are
far.
the executives, so.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, we're the C-suite executives here, and we've decided you're going to listen to me sounding like dog shit for an hour. So enjoy.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm just
Justin's the executive producer, and I'm the executive also here.
And I'm the executive
just-
chef.
If you want to be, man, I'll let you. I guess.
Make a mean PB&J for you guys.
Sweet.
Yep. So yeah, housekeeping. We do have a weird recording setup. We cannot postpone the episodes because I'm out of town. So it's just a whole thing's just really fucking stressful. And if anything goes wrong, I'm just gonna can all of it, refund Patreon for the month, and be like, I don't fucking know. Here's your money back. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix it. It's not fucking working.
It's fine.
So it's high stress environment over here for me. My week. I have been playing Halo with my 8-year-old. I don't remember how she got into it, but I was like, yeah, you can play too. And then she learned she didn't care about it. Like we played Halo 2 because I was playing it, and I was like, well, I mean, it's okay for it now. You're shooting aliens, you know, it's not, and it's like Halo's a little bit of like military simulation, but it's not like Call of Duty or anything, you know, like you're shooting aliens that squirt like neon blue blood, you know, with a gun that shoots big purple exploding needles. So like, you know. And so she played through a little bit of a level with me, and she's like, that was fun. And she didn't really care. And then we played Versus, and she learned that she can kill me.
Yeah.
And then she's like, this is the best game ever. Because I can kill you. And what I learned was, one, I'm way better than an 8-year-old at Halo. So just, you know, I'm
not sure I believe that.
Yeah.
not to toot my own horn. But what it turned into was like, I can't just dominate my child for 2 hours at Halo.
Right.
That would be a total asshole move. Right. So I had to intentionally lose, but she struggles with the 2-stick movement thing, you know, the movement stick and the camera stick.
I do too.
So what I have to do is I have to play in such a way that I'm constantly positioning myself in her field of vision, but facing away from her so she thinks I can't see her. And it turns out it's a really hard way to play the game.
Yeah.
So it's still very challenging for me because I'm having to like look at her, realize her position, and I never want to look right at her because as soon as she sees me looking at her, she panics. So I'm trying to make her feel like she's sneaking up on me. So I'm perpetually having to like back into her field of view based on where I can see that she is without actually looking at her. And it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, you found the game within the game.
I did. I think so. Yeah. And so we've been playing Halo, doing that. She's been having a good time with it. Oddly enough, out of all the games I own, Halo is the one we've been bonding over lately. And so she really likes driving the vehicles. She doesn't know how. So she just instantly crashes them into a tree and flips them over and then gets out of it and then throws a grenade at it on accident and then blows it up, then blows herself up.
That's what happens when 8-year-olds drive real cars too.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I would just like to note, as somebody who was selling games when the original Halo came out, that parents would regularly come to us and tell us how violent it was, as if it was our fault, and how it was inappropriate for their teenage children, and how dare we sell this filth to children. And now 20 some odd years later, I am listening to you talking about what a great experience it is with your 8-year-old. So
what's weird
that's
to me
just great
is,
to me.
because I worked at a game store not many years after you. I mean, less than 10 years after you. I mean, I started at GameStop in like 2005, I think.
So like 5 years after me.
Yeah. And I was pretty dead heat in the middle of the Xbox 360 PS3 era, which was full of like hyper realistic gray brown military shooters. Those were like the
game.
Nobody ever one time ever in my entire multi-year career at GameStop ever one time was like, man, this Call of Duty thing is like kind of bad, and like there's a scene where you have to shoot up a airplane or what's the place where airplanes land and take off? An airport lobby,
it's airplane home.
An airplane
Airplane home.
Oh, I couldn't fucking think of the word. Nobody ever says any of that, and it's like dark. It's like there's some dark scenes in those. Nobody ever said a fucking word. It's the idea that people are coming in like, my son shot a weird short alien voiced by a pug dog, and it squirted blue blood, and I'm very offended. Like, what?
Oh yeah,
what?
Yeah, that was a thing. Like, we constantly had people complaining about Halo, about Halo, Grand Theft Auto,
like SOCOM maybe. In that era,
I don't remember SOCOM ever getting any complaints because it was online specific. I think you mostly got older people playing it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there was a handful of games that people would come in and loudly complain about how violent it was and how horrible it was for their children.
Huh.
And
I
we
also
would
wonder because you lived on the Dallas side of the Metroplex.
I didn't work on that side, though. I worked in
okay.
Grapevine, which was right next to the mall, too.
Yeah, I was going to say it's sort of Dallas side-ish, but not particularly.
It's got Fort Worth area code.
Yeah, it's kind of right there in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah, I would consider it middle territory.
That's Tarrant County.
I don't. That's so weak because I mean, 5 years later, like hardcore hyper realistic military shooters were out. Nobody said a fucking word never.
I think it's just because that PS2 Xbox GameCube generation was the first time that graphics started to look like people, and so parents were first noticing how violent it could be, and then they just kind of got desensitized to it by the time the 360 and PS3 came around.
Yeah, like I had thought about it like at the violence angle, and I was like, maybe I could go turn the blood off or something, but then like I shot a grunt and they're like, "Mah!" and they squirt blue blood, and I was like, yeah, I don't think this is probably fine.
Like I remember talking to one dude who came in to bitch about how violent games were. He wasn't bitching at us. He was just bitching in general. He was like, I can't let my kids play any of this shit because of how violent it was. And I was like, well, what games did you play when you were younger? And he was like,
Narc.
He was like, my favorite game was Smash TV. And I was like, dude, that game is just like all exploding guts. And he was like, yeah, but it's little cartoon people. And I'm like, this is little cartoon people too. It's just from a different perspective.
I was thinking, like, when I was a kid, I had Terminator, Alien, and Predator, and RoboCop toys.
Yeah.
None of those are children's movies.
Yep.
I would be mortified for my child to watch I struggle to watch the first Terminator. There's some scenes in it where I'm like, fuck, man, I can't get through. RoboCop 2, like...
And they made a RoboCop cartoon for children after that movie came out.
Yep. The Frank Miller RoboCop comic, I still can't read because it's still too much for me. Like, as a grown adult, I'm like, oh, yeah, that one makes me feel a little sick. I can't.
Justin,
I can't do that one.
With your RoboCop action figure, did you ever, like, shoot through a lady's dress to shoot another guy in the
shoot a guy in the wiener. Yeah, that's constantly. It's
the scenario
you had to get the action figure set of the lady with the dress. And it was a little flip panel, so you hit it and it's like He-Man's armor, battle armor. He-Man, it'll flip over and it'll be the bullet hole, and you have to buy the guy that has the shot wiener that you stand behind her.
Did you have the RoboCop action figure that took the caps? Like a cap gun?
No.
Oh,
I had the battle damage RoboCop. I had the RoboCop that like his armor came off and then you could put on the battle damage armor. And then I had this is the dumbest one. I had the Terminator car
Yeah.
But the Terminator car, if you'll remember the movie Terminator, so for people that haven't seen Terminator or RoboCop, this conversation makes no sense. But it was a Terminator car that was sold for the Terminator, and on the front was a big giant metal like skeletal Terminator head, and the car was like black and red, which just is not like featured in any of the Terminator films. They just made like a kid-friendly version of a Terminator car just to sell a fucking accessory.
Yeah, it's pretty common back then.
My RoboCop rode around in the Terminator car all the time, so that's what he was using.
On the RoboCop packaging, did it say I'd buy that for $1?
I wish it did.
No, my RoboCop figure, he had the spring arm, so that you would hit the little thing and his arm would just spring up as if he was going to shoot. And two, you could load caps into the spring, so that when you hit the trigger to pull his arm up, it would make the little pop, the little blast noise, like you were shooting a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like
that's pretty cool.
Did you guys have cap guns? I don't even know if they make them anymore.
No, we had cap. Me and Andrew were talking about it on Talking Wizards recently. Like, we had the paper caps because the plastic caps were like $1 for 6, but then the paper caps were like $1 for 700 of them. So those were the ones we usually had.
Yeah. It's just weird to. Oh yeah, here we go. The Kenner RoboCop with cap firing action. That's the one that I had. Yeah, it's just weird to think back about, how violent those movies were, and I just had a bunch of action figures.
Let's keep doing the show. Saturn, what game have you been playing? I think the 40-minute pre-show has us in a weird headspace. I think is what has happened here.
Oh, yeah. So I went back to Balatro, which I both love and hate. I love it because it is a good game that is well made, and I can play it. And I hate it because it is all RNG, and I really hate RNG. I want some method in my gameplay. I want to know that if I follow the correct steps, I can somehow win. And because it is so randomized, that just doesn't happen sometimes.
I thought you were saying orangey, like it's a very orange game. And I was like, man,
it's very orangey.
If you fucking say so, I feel like it's more green than orange, but I don't fucking...
No, very orangey.
Yes.
Well, Saturn's talking about the flavor.
Yeah, it tastes like orange.
It tastes very orange. Yeah.
It's like the fruit. It's not like the color.
Yeah.
Then also, I had talked a while back about how I'd gotten Shockman on my Xbox. Mm-hmm. And so I've been going back and playing some of those, and... man, they're rough. I remember when it came out, everybody was like, this is the TurboGrafx answer to Mega Man. And even at the time, I was like, no, it's not. This is not quite Mega Man. But going back and playing them now, I'm like, this isn't even close to Mega Man. This is rough. It's not bad, but it's like Mega Man still feels very polished even today for a platformer on an 8-bit console.
The first one, like and even the first one still functions pretty well.
Yeah, there's some weirdness in the first one, but it's still mostly a functional game. Whereas a lot of the Shockmans that I've been playing is not. It feels very budgety. Like it feels closer to Keith Courage than it does to Mega Man.
Oof.
Yeah,
that's a big oof.
Yeah, I'm still enjoying it. It's because the one that I've been playing so far is the one that didn't come out over here in the first place, so it is new to me, which has been neat and interesting to see this bizarro world where we got this instead of Mega Man. But it's neat. If you're interested in 8-bit platformers and want to see something that is not quite polished, it's worth looking into.
Yeah, Andrew, what you been playing?
Just been occasionally playing Rock Band 4, just doing the vocals, so basically karaoke.
Yeah,
and just trying to beat high scores for songs.
Nice. Yeah.
I think what I asked you the other day, you're like, yeah, I've been playing Rock Band 4, and I was like, and you said just vocals, and I said, why don't you just sing? Like, why do you, you know what I mean?
Because having the score helps. I'm with Andrew.
I guess.
What I told Justin is that it has the lines for where your voice is supposed to be
for
pitch.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, that's what you said. So you're like getting actually better at it. Yeah.
Yeah, it teaches you how to adjust your pitch for that song. So,
or at least what it thinks that song should sound like.
Right. Yeah, it's not always correct, but
yes.
But yeah, other than that, just been doing a bunch of Flesh and Blood stuff. So
nice. I assume you're talking about the card game and not like
no.
I'm living in Flesh World.
Yeah, no. Andrew's a Cenobite now, so he's just doing lots of Flesh and Blood stuff. You know how it is.
Yeah, I go to the Cinnabon and
That's what Cenobites do. They just hang out at Cinnabon.
Did you?
In my head, I'm trying to figure out if you're doing a bit or if you think I said Cinnabon.
I'm doing a bit.
Because I know I'm on a shitty mic for y'all, and I'm like, did he think I said Cinnabon? Let's do the news. Nintendo is finally opening.
I'm just imagining. I'm sorry. I'm just still thinking about somebody at Cinnabon, and they open up their little package for their cinnamon roll, and like a Cenobite pops out of it.
Oh shit! This is Pandora's box. Yeah, it turns out it's a Cinnabon container the whole time. We didn't know. We just didn't know. Nintendo is finally opening a second U.S. store in San Francisco.
They somehow found
Saturn,
the place.
Right?
Yeah, they somehow found the place that is even further from us than New York.
Yeah.
I'll say when we went to the Nintendo store in Times Square, it was like I was whelmed. It was mostly just like Nintendo branded stuff you could get at Target, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you know what
there was a
this
couple
means.
cool things, but what?
They've hit both the coasts, so now they got to pick a place in the center.
You got to go in the middle.
Like Dallas,
Yeah, Canada.
Dallas are awesome,
Right?
You know?
In Wyoming.
Canada.
Yeah, Canada.
To celebrate Dragon Quest's 38th anniversary, Square Enix tweeted a single teaser image implying that DQ3 HD 2D is coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Steam, and Switch at some point.
Yeah.
The domain for Dragon Quest Dragon Quest HD2D.com was registered by Square Enix on April 24th. And rumors hint toward a Nintendo Direct reveal of an HD 2D Erdrick trilogy of DQ1, 2, and 3. This is all exciting news.
Yeah.
I just wish there was a little more data behind any of it.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's
that
kinda
one
what we're
image
missing.
didn't tell us much.
Yeah.
I would be excited if it is, in fact, the trilogy. That'd be really neat. I would be shocked if Square Enix charged less than $100 for the entire trilogy.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Valve has confirmed that you are not allowed to bequeath your Steam library to another person in your will, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
But also, you can just bequeath them your password.
True.
And then Valve won't know.
Yeah. So
No, that's not allowed, Justin.
Because
Shh, don't tell them.
Steam accounts don't like hard require your real name and address and all that shit, except for payment
Right.
info. So they're not really going to know, but they also did say that if someone were to do that, it would be a violation of TOS and they could revoke that account.
Yeah. I like that. Sometimes it feels like the gaming press, because we mention it all the time that like Valve isn't like amazing. They've just
No.
not gotten progressively shittier like every other big company.
Right.
So they always look good by comparison. And headlines like this makes me feel like people are like searching for ways to be mad at Valve. You know what I mean? Like, what were you going to say, Andrew?
I don't remember.
I heard you trying to talk. All right. Rumors are pointing to a new multi-platform Doom title called Doom: The Dark Ages to be revealed at the Summer Xbox event. I'm excited for a new Doom. I saw that I can't. They were like, oh, it's been this many years since Doom Eternal, and I was like, no, it fucking hasn't, and it has. That game is old now. It's an old game, you guys.
It's a 4-year-old game now.
The worst part is I was
God.
reading the news while you were reading it, and I thought you were going to say the Summer Olympics.
Summer Olympics
Reveal.
coming this summer. Doom: The Dark Ages, right after figure skating.
I'm a little excited about the idea of this just because I really dug on Heretic back in the day.
Yeah.
And Dark Ages Doom sounds like it would just be Heretic, wouldn't it?
It sounds that way. Oh, well, I mean, in the new
I guess there'd be
Doom,
more guns.
In the new Doom mythos, they've kind of mixed in a little bit of like weird, like sort of like Knights Templar vibe stuff of like the old, shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm
The
saying
old
is
shit.
basically yes, but the current Doom mythos does include a lot of like, knights in armor and shit.
I see.
As like the old, versions of what Doom Guy is now. For what they have a name for him in the game. They call him like, oh God, what do they call
Jeffrey.
him? They call him Jeffrey. You are the Jeffrey now. Sony held a State of Play, and Konami held a Silent Hill event. Yeah. Dynasty Warriors Origin seems to be a reboot of the series for PS5, which hopefully has better monetization. And Silent Hill 2 trailer shows that Laura still calls James a fart face, and that's a sentence I read, and I know what it all means and who all the people in it are.
I saw a clip from an interview with the original voice, because Laura is a 9-year-old girl in Silent Hill 2.
Okay, yeah.
And they cast, for the original version, a little girl who may have been 9 years old, but I don't know definitively. She was around that age. And I saw an interview that was discussing the original Silent Hill 2 with her, and she had mentioned that as a kid, when she was recording the lines, she thought she was going to get in trouble with her parents for calling someone a fart face, and also for calling someone a gutless fatso later in the game.
Jeez.
And she was like, "Oh, I'm going to get in so much trouble for this." But those are like the most childish, simple, lines in the game. But it's just kind of adorable to me that a little kid thought they were going to get in trouble for that.
Bungie has won a lawsuit against Destiny 2 cheat maker Aim Junkies, which I don't know about Aim Junkies. I presume it was a situation where they were either actively tampering with a live service or selling some kind of cheat product, which seems to always be hot water for these companies.
I had briefly read about this, but I've already forgotten. But apparently there was some specific things that got them in trouble as far as charging or whatever.
Yeah, it always is. It's always like you're doing a cheat thing and you're charging money for it, and then that's where you get got. Sony has revealed a PC adapter for the PSVR 2 to use the headset on PC VR games. I'm a little blown away they didn't have this already. You're supposed to pay how much money for a VR headset that only works on your PlayStation? Like, what?
Only on PlayStation 5, for that matter. It doesn't even work on the PS4, and you can't play PS4 VR games on it.
What?
You can only play PS5 VR games. They are not backwards compatible.
Every now and then I'm like, how the fuck is Sony winning this console generation? Like, every now and then I hear news like that, and I'm like, how the fuck are these the guys on top? Like, what is happening right now?
It's because their systems keep breaking, and their response is to buy a new one. So
no, that's how the PS2 succeeded, Andrew.
That is true. And the PSVR 2, just the headset and its weird orb controllers, is $449 right now. It is normally $549.
Oh. Star Citizen has now raised over $700 million. Release date still TBD.
Yeah.
At this point, at what point do you just realize that it's like a scam?
Yeah, it's been feeling like money laundering for many years now.
Yeah. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Developer Airship Syndicate has purchased back the distribution rights for their MMO Wayfinder and then took the game down. Representatives state that the game will no longer be free to play and will not include predatory microtransactions. They will also be adding offline and co-op modes. This is all very good. I like this is what we want to see.
Yeah, this is basically a developer taking back their game from the publisher and getting rid of all the shit that the publisher forced them to do in it. Which, I don't know anything about this game or this developer, but I am excited to see more developers taking back the reins and de-shitifying their games.
Yeah. And Jeff Folan, composer for games like Silver Surfer and Arcade's Revenge, has passed from pancreatic cancer.
That's rough.
Which is very...
Great soundtracks, too, for really bad games.
I've always heard that's also like the most painful cancer.
The worst cancer, yeah. So that's just very sad.
He was apparently first diagnosed with it just a few weeks before he passed too, which is just awful.
Yeah,
that's a scary condition. So
right,
that's an awful way to go. So that's a loss. So on that note, Andrew. We brought you on for this episode, and we're just gonna have you host it because you played this game.
I did.
Saturn. I've played more than Saturn, I think.
Probably
not a lot more. So I'm just gonna let you kind of take it away and just do your thing for the remainder. I might prod you from time to time, but
I was gonna ask if Saturn would do the development stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm bad at pronouncing names.
So. All names ever? All of the time?
All names. Justin and Saturn.
Thanks.
I'll never forget the lady at Genghis Grill who wrote my name as Saturn.
Yeah.
So our topic at hand this week is Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. So, Andrew, you can take it away.
All right. Well, for the synopsis, I said we'll talk about it a little bit later, but the short of it is that you're a freedom fighter against the evil empire. Finally, a new idea.
Yeah.
A chosen one story in a JRPG? What?
Yeah.
It's almost as if they just copied Suikoden's homework.
That's ridiculous.
Game was released April 23rd, 2024. And I guess first encounters for me, I didn't really know about this game. And I think I remember Saturn talking about the Kickstarter, just him kind of mentioning that he backed it and me not caring or knowing what it is.
There goes Saturn spending money again.
Well, it was something like, you're like, oh yeah, this JRPG that I backed on Kickstarter, and I'm like, I'm not good at them, and they take a long time. So
you have a pretty kind of checkered history with JRPGs. I feel like you know. I know you've enjoyed a few of them, but I feel like you're kind of in the same boat as me, where like the ones you really like, but then a lot of the rest of the ones you're like, I'm not fucking doing this.
Yeah, I think I was talking to a guy, not show related, about it, and I was just like, I can put like over 100 hours into Fallout or Skyrim, just kind of doing whatever I want in the game, but when it comes to a JRPG, like I see that like 80-hour commitment up front.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to commit that much time of my life to a game.
I have the opposite problem, because I'll look at Fallout or Skyrim and the world immediately opens up and I'm like, so the game is going to let me spend hundreds of hours in this playground, and I'm going to choose to spend 0 because I have no idea what to do now, and then I just turn it off.
Well, I also think with like Skyrim, I've never beat Skyrim, like to this day.
Yeah, me neither.
It's been out for 80 years
like
or whatever.
300 hours of it, yeah.
Yeah, like I've never beat it.
Yeah, if I'm several hours into a game and not making like trackable progress, like if there isn't a straight line that I'm going down, and I can't see that the ending is coming, I'll just walk away. I'm done with it at that point.
I think for me it's a modal thing where like I enjoy being able to sit down and make progress, but sometimes like I sit down and I want to play a game where I don't have to worry about it. And open world games like that for me can kind of be both, right? Where like I've got my little quest list of like, this is the shit you need to be doing for the story. Sure. But I can also just be like, I'm just going to go run around and do some dungeons. I still made a little bit of progress in that, I've got some new weapons or whatever, or I've gotten stronger, but I don't. Yeah, but I don't have to like sit down like, all right, let me get my fucking Excel spreadsheet and my checklist out. And, because sometimes I'm just like, I want to play a game, but I'm not in that mode. And for really linear stuff, I have to go play something else, and then that puts me at risk of putting the game down because now I'm off doing this shit. And I guess I'm talking so I can say my first encounter was also Saturn. I'd never played the Suikoden games. I tried to start the first one a few times and just fell out because it was boring.
How dare you?
And then Saturn, you had backed it, and I was like, that looks real good. Maybe I'll check that out. And then it came out, and I feel like all of us except for you started playing it, and then you're like, oh shit, we're doing that, and then you were trying desperately to catch up. So it's I'm kind of the same boat as Andrew.
Yeah, I was always a fan of Suikoden because they're good games, and I had intended on getting this as well. Obviously, I backed it on Kickstarter and everything, and when it showed up, my first thought was, I know how Suikoden works. There's going to be 100 plus characters for me to recruit. I'm not going to know how to do it, but I want my first run to have gotten all of them. So I'm going to wait for some guides and shit to come out so that I can just play through the game once, get all the things, and move on and maybe replay it later if I want to, which is how I typically play most JRPGs. And then I saw that you guys were all suddenly playing it for some reason. I was like, oh, shit, what, this is too early. Why are you doing this? So I tried to play it, and I just haven't been in that mood to play a checklist game right now, so I kept putting it off, and then next thing I know, it's time to record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll try to remember to get into it, but kind of based off or going off of what Saturn was saying about the checklist of getting everybody
right,
and also like what you were saying, you didn't like not knowing where the end was.
yeah.
I just wanted to say, like, on this game, like, I feel like they sort of telegraph the end of the game pretty okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is a part where that's called the final battle, that is before the end. Like, it's, but the game like blocks you from recruiting two characters at the end of the game.
Yeah, which is also a thing that the Suikoden games liked to do, which always pissed me off.
Yeah, it was not that was when I put the game down. But yeah, we can go, I guess, into development, Saturn, if you'll take that away.
Yeah, so it was originally funded on Kickstarter on August 29th, 2020. Development was led by Yoshitaka Murayama, who was the creator of the Suikoden series. And the Kickstarter made $4,541,481 with
Is that all?
yeah, with 46,307 backers. I meant to look up the goal that they originally had because it was less than that. I think it was $100,000 or something. But it was the third highest rated video game Kickstarter in history at that point, behind Shenmue 3 and Bloodstained. The development was by the newly formed Rabbit and Bear Studios, which was Murayama's company. It was the 505 Games ended up picking up the publishing rights about halfway through development, which they've been doing that for a bunch of Kickstarters, including Bloodstained. They may have published Shenmue 3 outside of Sega's publishing, if I remember right, as well. The director, Osamu Komuta, producer was Junichi Murakama, and the writing was by Yoshitaka Murayama himself. And they had brought in Motoi Sakuraba for the composer. That was a composer on Star Ocean, some of the Mario Sports games, some of the Tales series, et cetera, et cetera. The original release date was set for 2022 when they announced the Kickstarter project, but they had to delay it due to COVID-19, like everything else in the world. They after they did delay it, they also announced a prequel game was coming out, Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, which some of the backers were a little salty at that point, just because the
game wasn't out yet.
Yeah, the game was being delayed because they couldn't finish it in time. But then this prequel game was coming out.
Well, so they had to spend all that money.
Yeah, clearly. No, it was the what ended up happening was the prequel game was developed by a completely different company who just bought the rights to it to make a tie-in. It's developed by Natsume Atari, and they made sure to work closely with Natsume Atari on it just to ensure that it meshed up with the story and all that shit. But the prequel game for anyone who didn't play it is a side-scrolling action RPG. So it is gameplay-wise quite different.
Was it any good? I feel like I remember it just kind of coming and going.
I played through it. It's okay. It's fine. It's not a bad game, but it's kind of a meh game. I didn't dislike my time with it. It's a little slow to get started, and then it just kind of ends quickly. So it definitely felt like a budget title.
Yeah.
But it was fine. Released back in May of 22. And then after Eiyuden Rising came out, the main game, 100 Heroes, was delayed again from 2023 to April 23rd, 2024. And then the real tragic part, on February of this year, February of 2024, the director, Yoshitaka Murayama, passed away at age 55 due to complications from an ongoing illness. The family didn't specify what it was. But representatives from Rabbit and Bear Studio said that his work on the project was largely completed at that point, though obviously he was unable to see his final product actually release to the fans, which is really tragic after an extended development series like that.
I like to hope that he, at least he got to, It like it being February, just a couple months before the game comes out, like he got to I presume virtually finish the game. I mean, when you're within a couple months of release, like your game's pretty much done. You're just working out some business end of stuff.
They basically said it was just some bug fixes and localization, finalization, and stuff like that at that point. So it was his work on it was done. He just didn't get to see the reaction from the fan base, which was the real tragic part.
I feel like that $4.5 million Kickstarter number is real important as to my problems with the game, which we'll talk more about. But when you have these projects where it's like, oh, you want 100,000 and you made like $7 million, I see it a lot in Andrew, you see it too in the tabletop world, where sometimes it feels like companies are just like, okay, well, now every piece of the game is a resin miniature. Well, now the board is a playmat. Well, now every token is now a wooden, token, and it's this thing of like, man, sometimes you just really don't need all that. Like, just make the game whatever it is, the size and scope you wanted it to be originally, and sure, throw in some extra stuff for all the extra people, but like, I don't know. We'll talk more about it, but I feel like that's a real important note here, is that 4.5 million of a goal that was way, way, way under that is.
So I did look it up. The original goal was around 500,000 when converted from yen to US dollars. So they exceeded it by nearly 10 times.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of, I can't imagine there's not a lot of internal strife over like, hey, we got 10 times the amount of money we wanted. We need to make something bigger, versus, well, shouldn't we make the project we set out to make in the first place?
And also, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing, and as we'll talk about, there's a lot of mini games in this game. They still scrapped. Like, there were like 5 or 6 other mini games that they were going to add to it.
Right.
And
really?
Scrapped, yeah.
And so maybe the scope was ridiculous the whole time. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm just projecting.
Well, I think that's part of my issue with a lot of these Kickstarter projects is that they start out with a really exciting idea that I'm happy about, and then
which is Suikoden again,
right? And then they start adding all of these stretch goals just to try to raise more and more money, and it ends up bloating the game so much. Like Bloodstained came out years ago. The Kickstarter was so long ago that I can't even remember when it was. It was almost 10 years ago. And the game itself came out, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, and they're about to release the final update to it that finally hits all of the stretch goals. And that's ridiculous when they could have been making a new game. So they're getting no additional revenue at this point, but they're still working on that game that released several years ago. So it's I've started to see some of the more recent Kickstarter projects don't seem to be allowing that bloat to happen as much. The stretch goals are more like you get some stickers, unless we're going to add massive game modes to it, and that's a little more reasonable.
I get that it's the Kickstarter thing is right. Like, oh, your project did real good. What extra things do we get? But like, I don't know. Obviously, I think that's just a framing issue of Kickstarter as a platform and the way they allow these projects to run.
Right.
But I feel like bloat is such an issue. Anytime something's from Kickstarter, I'm like, oh, so it's 4 times the scope that it needs to be? Okay, well, cool.
Well, I feel like they could have also like sized down kind of what they did, because they had all the stretch goals, but they also had things where, like, if you pledged however much money, you got like a statue of you in the game, or a portrait, or you got to name one of the animals after your animal or after yourself. And
I hate that. Yeah. Every Kickstarter that does that, I end up really hating it, and it breaks my immersion to see some random dude's face in the background. Like, I don't need that in my games.
Well, I get to see it a lot.
Right, and that's in a lot of these Kickstarter things. Sea of Stars was the same way, where they had the area that was all about that.
Yeah, they had what's his face in there. The completionist, was in there right before all of his scandal came out. Yeah, the one in Eiyuden that got me, and I guess it's kind of presentation, just kind of what we're getting into, is in the first town. you get past the prologue and you come to the first town and you have kind of like a little base of operation. You have to talk to this little clerk dude that ends up becoming relatively important.
Yeah.
And sitting behind him is a huge human-sized portrait of a regular-looking human guy.
Yeah.
In this like anime world. And so I'll say this: Sea of Stars, at least they made the characters they added look, they kind of, they looked a little odd.
Yeah.
But they still generally fit the visual theme of the game. This is just like, it's fucking weird. It's like, in the mythos of the game, this is not what human beings look like. So who the fuck would paint this in the world? It makes no sense.
In fairness, people paint anime in our world, and that's not what humans look like.
That's true.
I guess.
You also got Picasso.
That's just their very stylized art style there.
There you go. Now I'm just imagining them watching anime in Eiyuden, and it's just regular people.
Their anime is just Law and Order SVU.
Yeah. So
Bunch of weebs.
Say for presentation, I did think that the game is really pretty.
Oh, yeah.
Besides the overworld's not that great, but
yeah.
The pictures on the Kickstarter are way better than what the game actually turned out to be.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Like they're like in the Kickstarter pictures in some of the videos, they've got like particle effects and like lighting effects, like just running around, and I was like, that would have been cool.
And the reason why you don't see that in the final game is the Switch.
Yeah.
Because they decided to make the game compatible with the Switch, and it's barely compatible with the Switch.
Yeah.
It runs rough on there.
I did like I thought the sound design was good, and I liked the music, though the music just got a song from Xenogears stuck in my head all the time.
That happens sometimes.
But yeah, like I said, like I actually noticed the music in this game, which generally, like, if I don't notice the music in the game, it's probably not good music,
I had a host of visual technical complaints with the game. Like, I like the idea of the style they are going for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I enjoy that, but then once I was running it on the Steam version modded that fixed a lot of them, but like running it on Xbox, I had weird technical issues. I had like, especially on the overworld, like it looked like there was this like ring around my character, around Noah, that like it didn't render all the way to the edge of the screen. So you kind of had like, it, like not pop in because objects would be there, but they weren't fully rendered till you got closer to them.
Yeah.
And in such a, relatively what you would imagine is a low impact kind of game, it felt really weird on a Series X.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The only technical issues, I didn't have any visual technical issues that I remember, or at least not anything that stood out. The main issue I had was with quick resume on the Series X. Either I had two different ones. Either sound would just not happen when I quick resume, like there was no sound, or there was music and sound effects, but there was not voice acting. All the voice acting was gone.
I had on PC, the game has extremely limited resolution support too. Like it does not support anything that's not 16 by 9. And it only has a couple resolutions. It has no widescreen support. It only does 60 FPS, so the FPS is capped. Just like shit that you it's 2024.
Shit that you used to expect from every Japanese PC port, you mean?
Yeah, like in 2015, sure, but it's like this is 2024, like this game, got again $4.5 million in Kickstarter. Give us some 1610 support. Uncap the frame rate, damn it. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, and if you go back and look at the original Kickstarter campaign, they specified that the consoles the game would be available for would be PC, Xbox Series X, PS4, PS5, and Nintendo's next generation console, because they didn't think that they could do what they were trying to do on the Switch.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, Nintendo just keeps pushing off Switch's successor, and it's causing a lot of technical issues in games.
Yeah.
I think it's like a presentation / gameplay complaint, but I also had issues like just with cutscenes. So like the main one was you would have an unnecessary cutscene that was just someone going, "Come on, Noah, let's go," and that's like the whole cutscene. It's like it's like maybe a minute long for some reason,
right?
And then you would take 2 literal steps in the game, and then another cutscene would activate.
Yeah,
that's like just make it one cutscene. Like why?
Right.
Why are we
it
doing
feels
this?
like it feels like a throwback to PS1 era game design, which I guess it kind of is. And I had that issue with a lot of games of that era, that you'd have a cutscene immediately followed by another cutscene, sometimes with no gameplay in between, sometimes with a couple of steps in between. And unfortunately, you still sometimes see that in JRPG, so it's not completely out of current development styles, but it should be.
I felt like it was just excessive nonstop cutscenes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it a throwback? Like, if it's a bad thing, because
that was kind of my impression of what I have played of the game so far, which again is not as much as you guys. Is that it very much feels like it is a throwback to that PS1 era RPG design, but including all of the negatives that entails.
Because I got kicked in the balls when I was 9 years old, and if Justin kicked me in the balls now and was like, "It's a throwback, Andrew," I wouldn't be happy about that.
Right.
I feel my issue was a lot of the cutscenes would be repeating information rapid fire. So you'd have, in a 10-minute span, 18, 19 cutscenes, I don't know, some insane number, and each of them would be repeating the same information. So the game's real bad about like, "Hey, let's go over here. Okay, I think we should go over there." And you get close and they're like, "Is that the place we were going to go to?" "Yes, we were going to go over there and that was the place." And then you get there and they're like, "We've arrived at the place.
Yeah.
We need to do this thing." And then a minute passes and it says, "We're here to do this thing in this place." And you're like, "Can you fucking shut up and let me do it?" Like,
sometimes when I see things like that in games, I think, is this a translation issue? Does this feel more natural in Japanese than it does in English? But it's just so constant in JRPGs that you'll see that same repetition. That I have to think it's a translation thing.
Well, I guess getting full into gameplay, like the main thing that I have for gameplay is that the whole game is just slow.
Yeah.
Walking around slow, cutscenes are slow. At the end of most cutscenes, you get the slowest fade to black ever.
Oh yeah.
And it's just it's not a good time.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate again, something that it has in common with that PS1 era JRPG is it's just incredibly slow about everything all the time. Transitions are slow, and fade ins and fade outs are slow. Granted, it's way worse on the Switch. I don't know if you've looked at any of the videos of the game playing on the Switch.
Brutal.
Yeah, and
brutal.
They released an update today that fixes a lot of things. And I saw on the subreddit for Eiyuden Chronicle, somebody posted the before and after on the Switch of loading into battle. And before, it used to take 17 seconds from overworld until you were in the battle.
That is an absurd number.
And after the patch, it's down to 14 and a half seconds.
Oh, okay. Well, I did.
What are we going to do with these extra 3 seconds, man?
You gotta run and get a drink.
Yeah.
My issue with speed, kind of piggybacking on that, is everything is slow, but also just navigating the menus is slow. Like when I hit the pause button and I'm hitting the bumpers to go between the different options there, that is slow. In cutscenes, this is again if after all this you still want to play the game, get the PC version because they've modded out a lot of this. There's a mandatory 2-second pause, so I would turn on auto advanced dialogue because the cutscenes were so numerous that I would just kind of watch the game a lot of the time. But after every dialogue box, if you don't push a button, there's a 2-second pause hard coded in. So someone says something, 2 seconds of silence, and then someone else says something, which is especially weird when they're interrupting someone.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you can mod that out, but it's there. It's just really slow. I ended up playing the game on 4x battle speed, which was still very usable, and on 3x character movement speed, which was also still extremely usable. I mean, if I'm moving my character at 3x speed and it feels fine, your game is too slow, period. Like, it's just everything from the UI to the cutscenes to even little shit. Like, I know we haven't talked about like what the actual gameplay is like yet, but when you get in combat, there's you have three options. You have like fight, one other thing, and then like flee, right?
Yeah. Auto battle is the other thing.
Yeah, auto battle. Why is auto battle not a fucking button? Every time I have to go bloop and select it and say yes. Like, make auto battle a button. Like, get in the battle. All right, press Y for auto battle. Like, it's just little things like that where you're like, there was no. Go ahead.
What's funny about it is one of the things that this does directly borrow from Suikoden back in the day is, despite it being a turn-based game where you put in your commands for your entire party, and then your party and the enemy all play out their commands, Suikoden always let all the characters kind of go simultaneously. Even though you put in your commands beforehand, you would see them all like jumping at the same time and doing all this shit. And this game does that too, which is great, but somehow despite that, what was once a time-saving technique, it still feels very slow today.
Yeah. Well, because you have, go ahead.
I was just going to say on the movement, like running around, like the fact that they, which I know some games have it, but the fact that they have like an item that increases your movement speed just to run around like the town or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I forgot I got it really early in the game. I put it on one of the characters that I had in my party basically the entire time. And then there's several sections of the game where you have to switch to a different person that's not Noah. And I'm like, why are they running so? Why are they so slow?
Well, the game also has lots of backtracking, going back through different areas. There are also moments where 70% of the time the game is great. And we should also mention this is a turn-based JRPG for people that want to know what they we're talking about gameplay. I don't know if it was said, but there you go. And all that entails turn-based, menu-based JRPG. Yeah. 70% of the time, the game's like, go exactly here and talk to this guy. And you're like, great, cool, that's awesome. And then 30% of the time, the game's like, make the world better. And you're like, okay, but fucking how? And they're like, with your powers. And you're like, what? Where do you want me to go? And you'll just wander around the entire overworld like, I don't. And then your next 10 objectives in a row are like, talk to this guy about this thing. You're all right, cool. And then it's like, find a friend. And you're like, what? Yeah. Where? And it's like, anywhere. You're like, fucking Christ, game. Just.
Well, they also have like the whole game is about recruiting characters to join your army so that way you can increase your ranks and get friends or whatever. And there's just several of the recruitment. I mean, a lot of people, you just walk up to them and they're like, well, I had my own thing I was doing, but I guess I'll just put my life on hold and join you for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, in a war.
Do.
Yeah, and then there's other people like for instance, the fisherman guy. Like there's a guy that's a fisherman that allows you to. We'll talk, I guess, in a little bit about your town, but he allows you to put a fishing spot in your town and upgrade your fishing rod that you have.
Right.
And in order to get him, you have to get a specific fish that no one tells you where to get. And is only in 2 locations, and they are both secret locations that don't show up on the map as a fishing location.
Nice.
You have to walk up to it and then get the prompt to fish.
It is like, my impression of this game is it is so heavily steeped in PS1 JRPG design,
right?
And has somehow learned absolutely nothing since the early 90s.
Well, that's your mistake. Is you're thinking of it as a JRPG when it is in fact a Suikoden-like.
Oh, pardon me. Right. I do want to talk about the so much of the game is the base building, right? So like you get a base of operations, and as you get people, they add features and different types of shops, and like you're trying to like build up this castle to like go against this bad guy army, and it's your standard thing.
That's how it is.
Suikoden likes.
Yeah.
But just walking around your base, it is 90 times bigger than it needs to be. So just getting around the fucking place sucks. And the map for it is really bad.
There's a teleportation tome all around the place.
What?
There's a little like, it looks like a kind of like a gravestone.
Oh yeah, no, hold on. I
lights
just
on
got that
it.
because I'm only like 16 hours in, so I just now
Okay.
got that.
Yeah.
So now it's not the worst thing in the fucking world to walk around. Just now it is.
Yeah.
I always love when we get to find something that Justin hasn't found in a game.
Well, because and we should say we didn't say this. The reason Andrew's hosting the show is because I quit the game because I hate it. I really tried. I enjoyed it up front, and I reached a point where I was like, I had sat down to play it one day, and I'm playing on PC, so I've modded out the 2-second pause. I've increased combat speed. I've increased walking speed. I fixed a litany of visual issues that the game has. I unlocked different resolutions and higher refresh rates, so I can play the game the way it should have released, period. and that is my strong opinion. And all of these changes were made with Beppin, which is a pretty common modding tool, and a config file. So if that can be done within a few weeks of release, it should have come out with those features, period, end of story. But I also started having such a bad time with the game that I started turning on cheats because I was like, I just want to get through it. Andrew's wanted to cover this game, and he's played like 60 hours of it. Like, I want to show up and be able to talk about it with him, and it reached a point where I had so many cheats on.
Yeah.
And then I started skipping cutscenes because every cutscene is like, oh, we have to talk to the guy. The guy's over there. Have we found the guy? Yes, there he is. We still need to talk to him. All right, I think.
Thanks for talking.
Yeah, and so I'm skipping cutscenes. I have God mode turned on. I have like 5x auto combat turned on, and I was like, I'm not actually playing Eiyuden Chronicle anymore. I'm just pressing buttons, and the game is playing itself. And I had gotten up to play it one day. I was like, all right, all day, that's all I'm doing is I'm playing Eiyuden at least to get a good chunk into the game so I can talk about it with Andrew. And it put me in such a bad mood just having to interact with the game that it ruined my whole day. And right about lunchtime, I was like, I just have to be done because it's making me actively like hostile. And then the rest of that day was dog shit. And I was like, just fuck it. Fuck that game.
I mean, I really, like, I enjoyed the game when I first started playing it, and I didn't really have any issues with it because I didn't.
The first few hours are pretty fun.
Yeah, and I don't have like a big history with JRPGs, so I don't really know how or Suikoden likes. So I don't I don't know like how they're supposed to function
Saturn.
or anything like that. So I was just kind of like enjoying it. Like it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Xenogears, and that was kind of, I guess, spurring me on. And then just the more and more I played it, it became more of like I'm gonna like 100% this game. Like I'm gonna get the good ending. I'm gonna finish it, and then I get to the part where you can't, like, they literally block you, not because you don't have resources or you like they make one of the locations
you just get story gated.
Yeah, one of the locations you have to go to in order to recruit someone is you can't go there. They will not allow you to.
Can you go there in the post game?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe. Because I just put it down. And then the other thing is that they, in order to recruit someone, you have to talk to another character,
right,
who is in your castle,
right,
but technically also at that location you can't go to. But they're in their room in the castle, but they're also at that location. And when you go talk to them, they just like repeat the same thing over and over again instead of telling you about this person.
So you have to speak to them in that location, but you can't access that location.
You have to speak to them. It just like, because there's a character that you unlock that is Baba, and she is
she's a sheep.
She's a sheep. No, she's like a
I've played Baba as you. I know what Baba is.
She's a fortune teller that tells you where other characters are to recruit.
Oh, okay. So she is the equivalent of Jean from Suikoden. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So she tells you what to do to recruit them, but then you can't do it. So
right. That's an issue I had with the original Suikoden games too. Is there is a story gate point where you can't recruit anybody anymore, and unless you know it is coming, you don't know that it's going to happen until it's too late and you can't go back, and that's frustrating game design for me.
I had issues with the characters. So when you have 150 characters in a game, recruitment usually means walk into a town and look for who looks like they just got back from an anime convention, and those are the characters that are recruitable, right?
Or
because everyone else is
literally a backpack on the ground with eyeballs.
Yeah,
in the open slot.
yeah. You just look for the character with main character syndrome, and you go talk to them, but not all the time, because I think they might have fixed it. But there were some characters, or there was at least one I could think of, that if you talk to her, it would lock you out of getting her later in the game because it was busted when the game came out. Oh. But I was like, all right, that's kind of neat. And then you start accruing characters fast because there's so fucking many of them.
Right.
And so pretty quickly you're like, all right, some of these characters I don't really give a shit about. And you sort of pick your favorites and you build your team. And then a little ways into the story, it introduces like almost 10 characters at the same time. Mm-hmm. As like, because here's spoiler, we're not going to have a story episode of this game because Andrew's the only one of us that experienced the story, and even he didn't want to talk about it for a whole episode.
I mean, I want to talk about the story. I just don't want to. I don't want to sit there and just be like, and then you do this, and then you do that. Like,
and so they're like a whole separate adventuring party, just like yours, of like all main characters.
Yeah.
And it was just like overload. Like it introduced so many characters so fast, so rapid fire that I didn't fucking care about any of them.
Yeah. Well, there's also 3 main parties. There's Noah, there's Marissa, which is the Guardians, and then there's Sane, which is from the Empire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like it's so much. It's so much to care about that I just didn't. You know what I mean? It was. So
I'm going to be
so
honest.
fast.
All the things you're complaining about are making me more interested in playing this.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Maybe this next thing that I'll talk about.
The slowness is making and the visual issues.
Okay, not the slowness.
And the
visual issues I don't care about.
I wish things were back when I was a kid. Things were slow and.
Slowness is a problem. I agree with that, but the rest of it is
well, I think the next thing I'm going to talk about might make you not so interested, Sam.
Yeah.
Which is
it fishing? Because I hate fishing.
So many mini games.
So it's just stuffed with mini games. I'm just going to
that was kind of how the original Suikodens were as well. There's just a shitload of mini games.
Well, you got the Beyblades / spinning tops mini game. There's a card game, a collectible card game. A boat racing game, a fishing game, a horse racing type sort of game with egg creatures instead of horses, a large-scale battle minigame, a one-on-one
Hold on,
duel minigame.
I want to talk about the large-scale battle minigame and the one-on-one duel minigame because these are not optional.
Yeah,
correct.
Those were always the big part of Suikoden. Yeah.
Yeah, you run into those as part of the story, and the duel minigame is kind of fun. It's neat. It's simple. It's simple enough. Like, I didn't enjoy it, but it was simple enough that I was like, all right, whatever. The battle mini game is bad. It's a bad game.
Oh, yeah.
It sucks and it's not fun. And when you fail, it's like, do it the fuck again. And it took 40 minutes and it's really, really long. And it's like, man,
I just never failed any of them.
Oh, I failed them.
I thought they were all super easy and stupid.
No, the first one, like, the first time you do it, it restricts your movement, so you can't even really play the game properly.
Oh, right, yeah, it doesn't because there's ramps, and so you can't move.
Yeah, so I had accidentally moved my characters into a bad spot, and then I couldn't get them back to where they needed to be, and I ended up failing like 2 times.
Oh.
Because I was like, why can't I move there? I must have just messed up, and then I was like, oh, it physically restricts me, but it doesn't tell me that it will restrict me. Because it's just bad. And then whenever you do the large-scale battle minigames, you're like, all right, I've set up my turn. And then you hit execute turn. And then you have to watch like a minute-long cutscene of shitty little zoomed-out characters swinging swords at each other.
Yeah.
And it's just really incredibly so not fun. It was bad. It was very bad.
I didn't like the duel minigame, the one-on-one like character fight, because I looked it up like towards the end of the game that there's because I had trouble with every single one of them basically.
They're hard
except for maybe one, and I looked it up, and their voice lines are prompts for which option to choose, but the game doesn't tell you that.
Every now and then they'll say something like they'll just be like, I'm gonna attack, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll defend, but sometimes they're vague about it.
Yeah.
Is it rock paper scissorsy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
basically
good, Mike.
Also, like I
it.
read a thing that I could not verify. I couldn't find it anywhere else, but a couple people said it, that your character armor and stats / weapon upgrades were related to your possibility of winning or losing the duel, which seems weird.
Seems like a bunch of hidden information.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a cooking battle mini game, a super bullshit trading goods mini game, a theater mini game, a getting resources to build up your town kind of mini game. Also,
the game also. What really annoyed me was so much of the game has you going back through low level areas.
Yeah,
and the encounter rate is insane. Like I'll go 5 minutes with no encounters, and then I'll have 10 encounters 10 steps in a row. And even fleeing from encounters can often take as long as doing the encounter on auto battle at 4x because the UI is so slow.
Right.
Yeah.
But on battles where it's like they don't stand a chance, it gives you the option to allow the enemy to flee instead of just flee, to indicate to you that, like, hey, you're not going to get any experience for doing this battle. But if that's the case, don't make me have the combat. Period. I don't. If there's no point in me doing it because I'll get no XP, then just have the encounter not occur when it's below a certain average party level.
Yeah,
and
I'll tell
it
you
wouldn't be such. What?
I'll tell you the reason why they do it is there are sections. So like to talk about like the spinning top game.
Yeah.
How the Justin, did you even get there? Because I got there like 30 hours.
I played the shitty Beyblade top game. Yeah.
Because when you get it, he gives you one copper piece that actually can do damage, and then he gives you 2 like training things, and then
they're like dummy pieces.
Yeah, to go fight other people, which they don't work at all, or do any damage to the other people's tops. So you have to go fight monsters, and the monsters have a chance of dropping the tops, but the drop rate is so terrible in this game that you need an item in order to get drop rates every single time.
What good games do for that is they create something like a whistle mechanic where you can force an enemy encounter or greatly increase the chances of it. That's what good games do instead of just fucking the encounter rate and for the entire game.
Well, this game has it too. It has there's an attachment you can get that either makes monsters not happen as much or happen more.
Okay,
but yeah,
so there's no point.
Yeah, so I had to go back. And go to specific areas. So to talk about the spinning top game bullshit, you basically have to go to this one area to get a bunch of gold tops to be able to beat anyone. And then like there's no challenge once you get those tops.
Yeah.
So the game just felt really hollow and stupid and pointless.
I don't know. I had so many issues with just encounters and encounter rate. There's a lot of just walking back and forth through zones you've been through that are 20 levels below you.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over. Maybe not in the last half, but the first half that I played, there was a lot of that. And it just got... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I will say I really did enjoy the card game mini game.
I never made it to the card. I was so upset. Like when I quit, I was like, I wanted to play the fucking card game.
In the because you just find a guy in a town that's trying to play and you have to. It took me like 3 times to beat him because he just gives you the basic deck, which has no it's just those cards. Right.
And then he's got his kick-ass deck, just like when you try to learn card games from your friends, and they're like, "Here, you get the shitty cards."
But yeah, that game is a very simple card game. Like it's not complicated. Like it's very easy to figure out. But there are like combos and stuff you can do once you get a good deck. And unlike the spinny top game where you have to go like get drops from monsters, once you beat that guy, he goes, "Oh, I'll join you because you seem cool because you beat me in a card game or whatever." And then he opens up a card shop in your town. And then you just upgrade the card shop all the way, and then you can just buy pack of cards. Like, just continually buy
See,
packs
if they could just give me that part of Eiyuden Chronicle, just that part, then I'd be good. I just want that sliver of it right there.
But that was, like, the only one that I really had fun with. Cooking battles was dumb and frustrating. The trading goods mini game, I do want to mention, because I was talking to you guys about it. They have, it's like your stereotypical. You go to a goods store that only sells
stock market
items.
Thing.
Yeah, and it's only for that. Like, they're not items you can use, and they've got arrows pointing up and arrows pointing down about the value. But those arrows,
they're not items you can use, but they do take up extremely limited inventory slots.
Yep.
Which is very frustrating.
Yeah, and those arrows pointing up and down are only representative of that town or region. And so you actually
Which means you need to memorize where you bought it from, go back to that specific region, and then try to sell it there after you've written it down somewhere, I guess, would be the only way to know.
No, you have to memorize the price that you bought it for, and then look at other towns to see if it's the price. Like, the arrows don't matter. They're stupid. And it was just, it took, I probably spent, I would say, 4 hours in the game trying to recruit someone that you have to make money at the goods selling thing. And finally, I just looked it up online, and there was somebody on Reddit that's like, buy these 3 items from this town and go to this town and sell those 3 items 4 or 5 times, and you'll get them. And it worked. So it was bullshitting and aggravating.
My issue with the game as a whole, I think, is it's 10 miles wide and an inch deep. We haven't even talked about the main mechanic for building your characters, which is the rune lenses.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because the initially I was excited by this. Your characters have these rune lenses, and depending on the type of character, they can equip these lenses that give them give this guy fire magic, give you basically materia, kind of, in a way. Give this person healing magic, give this person extra strength, extra defense, whatever. And I was like, this is so cool. I like that. And as they level up, they unlock new slots. It's not tied to equipment or anything, so they get to keep them. The problem is, each slot can only take specific type of rune lenses, so you have to match the icons from the store. But when you go to the store will just say, hey, this person can use this rune lens, and then you try to equip it, and they're like, no, it's not the right type of icon for this rune lens slot. And maybe I'm stupid, but it's like I just could never... I felt like every time I was equipping anything, my options were you can really put multiple things in this one slot, and all the other slots are so specific that you kind of have nothing you can put there.
Well, they had slots that were specific to abilities that character had. So whatever rune lens attack that was SP and not MP related, you couldn't ever change. That was there permanently. But then other ones that would open up that would allow you to have magic, or allow you to have plus HP or plus defense or plus luck or whatever. The problem that I ran into, which I didn't actually, I didn't want to waste the time to go through to find the character that it actually fit with, is, for one, I never bought anything from a rune lens store. The game just gives you enough rune lenses throughout the entire thing that it's kind of pointless to have the rune lens store, especially since you can sell them at the person that is your warehouse person. So there's no point to have the store to sell them either. But the problem was towards the end of the game is I got so the magic slots, whenever the rune lens slots for magic when they open, have the little dots. So it's a 1 through 4 dots based on how powerful that spell or the magic rune lens is. And I started getting 4-dot rune lenses that allow you to use fire 5 through 8 or whatever, or the highest level of magic. But I had no characters that had a slot that was 4 dots, at least that I used. So it could have been a character because I recruited every character but 2. Unless you count Noah's sister, which even when you go to the fortune teller person, they're like, you can't recruit her. Is literally what it says. So
is there maybe a way to add slots?
Not that I could figure out. Unless there was, because there were abilities that allowed you to increase their magic, not MP but magic. So maybe that did it, and I just didn't put enough into magic, but that seems convoluted and stupid. So I don't know. I'm assuming there's just a character that has it, and I just didn't ever use them.
I will say the one thing in the game that I really did like and I wish more JRPGs did, was the I forget what they call it, and the battle plan. That's what they call it. There's basically, you can program your characters in the game, and you can give them a priority list of like, hey, your number one priority is heal people below 30 HP, and then your number 2 priority is debuff, and your number 3 priority is buffs, and you can really program out. You can also change like preferred targets, so you can be like, these 2 guys will target the person with the most defense, and this person targets the, it's really robust. And you kind of have to, because again, doing combat outside of auto combat is extremely, extremely slow, because you have minimum 6 combatants plus, an equivalent number of enemies, which is usually like 3 upwards of like 10. And so
6,
the actual programming, is it 8? Is 8 the max enemies?
Yeah, eight's the max, I believe.
So you're looking at 14 combatants on the field at a time, so there's just a lot going on. So you're going to want auto battle probably pretty frequently. And the programming aspect was really cool. I liked that a lot. It felt very kind of Final Fantasy 12, not quite as robust as what did they call it in 12? The Gambit system, was that what they called it?
Yeah, the Gambit system.
What it was? Gambits. It's not quite there, but like it's just crunchy enough that I had a good time programming my characters, which of course I only ever did once, and then I just hit the button, and I don't know what they did after that.
I have a confession.
Yeah,
I liked the combat, so I just never figured out how to program anyone. Like I went in there and was just like, nobody use items. I don't want you to use any of the items, please. And I was like, just do attacks. And I only auto battled when there was like 1 enemy left, because it didn't matter.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah.
I was auto battling. As soon as I saw I could program my team, I was like, I'm going to program to do exactly what I want, and then make them go do it. And then that was it.
But like me doing the battle system made it feel like I was doing something. Like I wanted to feel like I was contributing, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
I did too, but it was like a time thing where I was like, battles that are getting me almost no XP are taking 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, and it's like I don't fucking have the time. I don't want to,
Right. Yeah, I tend to do mostly auto battle in JRPGs that allow it, but I am pretty rare to play around with the macro customization like that. But I've not gotten far enough to really play with it though.
And then I guess we're really over on time, but I did want to just mention the story. I'm not going to like go through it or anything or really do any spoilers beyond like it's so I stopped like right before the end, like right before you're going to go fight the boss or whatever, just because I was like, I'm upset at not being able to recruit people,
right.
And I'm not going to give this game any more of my time. Which apparently is 3 more hours from where I was. And I ended up watching like a YouTube video. I just skipped the battles. Like I just watched the story bits. And I feel like if I had played the game and gotten to the end where it was, I would have been upset.
Yeah, I was talking to you.
It seemed very anticlimactic. Like,
I was talking to you, and I was like, all I have left is the story. Does the story get good? And you're like, no, it basically does what it looks like it's going to do for 60 hours, and then it is done.
Yeah.
Like, is there ever? Because like pretty early on in the game, like you can see the trajectory that the story is going to take. Does it ever really deviate? Like, I mean, is it just kind of what it proclaims to be pretty early on?
It is what it is. Like, I was expecting more. Like, I got to the quote-unquote final battle, which is the last, like, the final battle is just the last minigame big battle that you have to do. Which was also kind of stupid because a bunch of stuff happens. Like, it's like the whole time going into it, people are like, we're gonna win, Noah, for sure, but then everybody else like really is like, we're all gonna die. Like, it's like this double weird two-faced thing. And then in that final battle, a bunch of like Deus Ex Machina, like Gandalf coming over the ridge happens that you weren't expecting, but
I definitely didn't expect Gandalf.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Frodo was there.
Nobody
too.
expects Gandalf. He's just
the Spanish Inquisition was there.
Yeah, they showed up.
But So like all this stuff happens, and I kept expecting the story to get bigger, kind of a thing, and it just never did. Like the way that they were setting up the main villain of the game, the Dukes Aldrich,
which is spelled Dux.
Yeah,
Ducks.
Just
Ducks.
It is Dux Aldrich. His name is Dux Aldrich, and I don't care what anyone says.
But the way that they were like setting him up and what he was doing, I was expecting like, and it's not a spoiler because it's not in the game, I guess. But like I was expecting like a Final Fantasy type thing where like the rune lenses corrupt him and he becomes a monster himself or something like that, and that like never happens.
You were waiting to kill God like every other JRPG.
Right. Like I was expecting it to turn into this thing, and instead it was just like he lost and he retreats and you have to go kill him like while he's hiding in his castle.
That's at least on brand. That's basically how most of the Suikoden games wrap up. It's there is no like massive god, and even like at the end you're left questioning like, were they really like evil or were they just really defending their beliefs in their country, which is kind of where they went with most of those. Is he definitively evil?
He pretty much like he did some really evil things that was not like defending his, like you kind of understand where he
does some war crimes.
So his whole thing like his whole thing is like, because there's people in the game that have rune lenses and then there's characters in the game that don't, and they're in your party and they don't have like an SP ability the entire game. And the Dux does not have a rune lens. And so the whole game is him going, "Wah, I'm sad because I don't have a rune lens, so I'm going to try to figure out a way to give me one." And that's the whole thing. So, yeah.
That was your plot synopsis. That was a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I'm gonna come back in 6 months or a year when I finally play this game and give my actual impression of the game.
I would love to know. I'd love to know.
Yeah, it's just yeah, there's oh man. Just the one building I didn't complete in the game is the theater, which is also the other mini game that I enjoyed. Because all the theater is you get plays whenever you're walking around. Which, by the way, there are stores that sell certain red items or starred items that only are sold when you look at them right then. So if you do not purchase them then, they may show up later or may not in that store ever again. And some of those items are items you need to complete your castle.
Right.
Like scripts for the theater. And all it is you choose characters that you've recruited and they like do a little play for you. Nice. And it's like the cutest, dumbest, awesomest thing that I've done. Because like I just love casting terrible actors into the plays and then hearing their voice acting, and the fact that they had every single character do the voice acting for every single part in a play.
That's pretty good.
Was really funny and cute and awesome. So I guess that's it. I'm just really disappointed where the story went. I thought it was going to be better.
Or at least do something that wasn't exactly the trajectory you anticipated from the first hour.
Right. And I think there's some good character development there. I think Noah has a pretty good arc, which is good.
Noah and Insane are kind of the only two that I even gave a shit about that even had anything interesting going on.
Yeah.
But then I think just by virtue of these games that have 150 characters, there's a high probability you'll care about some other characters and their story is just like, they're good, they're good stuff.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have space for it.
I guess that's the last thing I'll say is that at the end of the game, like after everything's done, like after the credits, they do like a 80s 90s college party movie outro where like they show like a portrait of the character, and you know how like in those movies it was like Matilda went on to be the president of the company and Johnny and
the Stand
Sarah
By Me ending
married basically. And but like I sat through all of them, and the YouTube video I watched did not have every character recruited. But they're all like they they do stuff where it's like this character went off to do this, or this character is still going off in being in other wars, but they come back to like visit Noah every once in a while or whatever.
Yeah.
But then there's characters that are like, he went back to his farm.
Yeah.
Or like he still makes pies. Like I don't know. It's just the thought that they didn't put in some of these characters was disappointing.
Yeah.
Anyway, you want to talk about reception and then wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm shocked at the 79 it has on Metacritic. It has gotten, I'd say, like average to good reviews.
Yeah.
And this does not play like an average to good game for me, between the multiple issues we've talked about here, between the basically ignoring 30 years of JRPG design and the technical issues I had on 2 different platforms. I'm a little taken aback by that, to be completely honest.
It's dipped to 78 now.
It's not super uncommon that we disagree with the critics to begin with, but it just 78 feels high for me.
There's a 78 now. It was a 79, but I think 78 is
they both
more in
feel high.
line.
There are 0% negative reviews.
Oh,
yeah, it is.
That's
well, that's all the Kickstarter backers. Saturn.
No, this is the critic reviews. It's
okay.
76% positive, 19% mixed, 0% negative. And then when you look at user reviews, you have 24% negative and 70%
that is
positive.
very high. 24, but that's a quarter.
Yeah, 70% positive,
Wow.
6% mixed, 24% negative when you're looking at users.
I gotta be honest. This game was kind of tricky because the first 2 or 3 hours I really enjoyed. I really did.
Yeah.
And then it was like the game just started to thin out. You know what I mean? Like you're playing and you're like, all right, man, this is really good. And I got excited about it. And then it just starts thinning out. And then all those little issues you have continue to either get worse or don't go anywhere. And then the game itself is thinning out, and you're just like, oh man, this is, it's like you're eating an ice cream cone, and at the very bottom is like a little dingleberry.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the cone, and you're like, fuck, man.
Right, but what's the problem with it?
What, Andrew?
What's the problem with the dingleberry, Saturn?
No, what's the problem with the ice cream? It still seems fine.
The problem, Saturn, is you shouldn't eat shit.
What?
Justin, did you get to the shark people?
No, I did not.
Oh, I was so excited for you to get to the shark people because I
Oh,
was like, it's like street
man.
sharks.
Oh man. I guess this is getting into final thoughts.
Yeah. Well, first, Justin, what's the legacy?
We don't know
people
yet.
will probably
We'll
be like,
find
it's
out.
the best Suikoden game. I'll say this: hearing Saturn repeatedly this whole episode go, "That's exactly Suikoden."
Yeah.
If anything, this game has convinced me to never play a Suikoden game.
Yeah, me too.
I love those
hearing
games.
hearing me be like, oh, scope issues, quality of life issues, pacing problems, story problems, and you're like, yeah, dude, that's Suikoden. I'm like, oh, then I don't want to play those.
Which makes me sad because I've always been interested in Suikoden, but I haven't ever
Me
gone
too, yeah.
to it.
I'm probably going to replay the Suikoden games when the collection eventually ever comes out, and I do still plan on playing this. And while I absolutely understand some of the critiques you guys have had about it, especially quality of life issues, the actual gameplay stuff you've described and story stuff does not detract me at all. I'll still probably play it.
Well, it's just like it's 2024. Like we should have some quality of life.
Oh yeah,
improvements
definitely.
from
That should
game
definitely
like-
be there. I agree with that.
My thing is, if you have a $4.5 million campaign to because basically this is a Suikoden game, right? I mean, it's the original dude. Like it is for all intents and purposes, outside of legal naming schemes. This is a Suikoden game, and
I've been also looking while you guys were talking just now. I've been looking at Suikoden communities to see what their take on it is. And it's been overwhelmingly positive. A lot of people are saying that it is the best game in the series since the PS1.
Like, my thing is, what I like to see from Kickstarter projects like this is them taking the original idea, using that as inspiration, and figuring out how to, what I wanted this game to do was ask itself, hey, what does Suikoden look like in 2024?
Yeah.
If we did Suikoden today, what does that look like? And instead, it's just like, hey, what if we just jacked off over Suikoden for 60 hours for $4.5 million? Like that, does that make sense? I'm like, no, man. Some of this stuff can go, but then a lot of it just feels unfinished. Things like 2-second pauses and auto-advanced dialogue, things like the extremely slow walking speed, the slow UI, the weird technical issues, the massive technical issues on Switch. Like, it feels problematic and unfinished in those regards.
Well,
Justin, and that's an issue.
This is the limp Suikoden,
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I'm still shocked they released it on Switch. I don't think they should have, and I think that it could have been a better game if they hadn't.
What gets me is the game's not doing anything that the Switch shouldn't be able to handle just fine.
Right. Yeah.
And it just points to poor optimization, poor programming, poor technical capabilities. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think if all of the issues that could be patched out that I experienced were patched out, all the technical issues, they fix things like battle speed or at least make it adjustable. Like, if they fixed all that tomorrow, I think I'd still be kind of lukewarm on it. So I guess that's kind of my final thought is, like, as it stands, this was a rough, frustrating, unfinished feeling game to me. And I think if they were to fix all that, I'd be like, yeah, maybe. If it was maybe half the length, maybe.
Well, at least it's selling for $20 less than a full price game.
Yeah, I mean, I originally just started playing it because you guys were talking about it, and because it was on Game Pass, so I didn't have to pay anything. So,
yeah, I bought it on Steam like an idiot.
I don't know why you bought it. This is exactly the kind of game you wouldn't normally like.
I can tell you why I bought it. Because I was playing it on Game Pass, and Game Pass kept fucking up, and it looked bad, and I wanted to mod it to make it actually playable to, like, someone who's not insane. And you cannot mod the Xbox version. You cannot mod the Game Pass PC version. And I had to replay the first 6 hours because you cannot transfer your saves from the encrypted Game Pass PC saves to the Steam version. So, I'll say this. There's a very robust cheat table for it. So if anybody out there is running Cheat Engine, then
so
there you go.
I guess on my final thoughts, I'm going to change everything that I wrote down in the notes and just go based on what Saturn has said about Suikoden. It sounds like they made a solid what they wanted to make. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I think this is what the Suikoden fans wanted. It's just a product of its time.
So if you're a Suikoden fan, you probably will like it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you know in a few months.
How many games are there? Were there 4 of them?
There's 5 of them plus 2 spinoffs.
And I know that basically everything past the first kind of like 2.5 really people are pretty usually down on.
The first 2 are generally beloved. The third game is liked by some people. The 4th and 5th game are mostly disliked. So I like the 4th game more than the 3rd game personally.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. It's a thing, but there you go. There's
what else Chronicle. Is a thing?
What, Andrew? What else is a thing?
Our Patreon.
Oh, tell me about our Patreon.
RetroWarriors.com.
No, god damn it. That's not even our URL. Stop saying it.
Patreon.com/RetroWarriors.
RetroWarriors.net is our URL.
I know. But where you can get, am I doing it right, Justin?
Yeah, keep doing. Okay. Don't ask for approval. Just keep doing it.
Life-size footballs with our faces.
Jesus Christ! No.
You can also get the new pinball machine.
I'm not legally bound by anything Andrew says. I want that to be clear to all of our patrons.
You can get a picture of Andrew where he lists his home address on it.
And on the back is a list of my fears.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No, you can get cool things like Read Along, where we read a gaming magazine.
And sometimes we just read Andrew's address.
Sometimes you can get a 40-minute pre-show for Justin's internet.
Yeah.
And you get Talking Wizards, which is just me and Justin talking about wizards.
We haven't talked about wizards in like 100 episodes.
It's just us discussing the movie The Wizard.
Yeah, for 150 hours.
Every other week.
I wonder how long we could do that before they asked us to stop, before the patrons are like, please quit doing this.
11 minutes.
I just imagine one episode is just an hour of you and me back and forth just going, California.
Yeah, and then the next one is just us going, The Wizard! We want to thank the following patrons for the money that they gave us, starting with, I guess, Andrew, do you want to do these with us? You want to go after Saturn?
Nope.
All right, just me and Saturn then. Starting with Evelyn Belchev.
And Ebusel.
David DeAndrea.
Eric G.
Poncho Man Randy Savage.
Video Rangers Podcast.
Mark Meredith.
Brett Stifler.
Kazin the Mage.
And Michael Cabetti.
Are all people who gave us money.
Yay.
So thanks for the money. We love money. It's awesome.
Justin
You can get all
loves
sorts
money.
of cool things for money. Don't pretend like you don't enjoy money as well.
I hate it.
Money is...
Also, you're
Andrew, what are your
welcome.
opinions on money? Just don't give me your opinions. Just give me a letter grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is a letter. We can move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
It's truncated down to the U, so it's just you gave him a U.
gonna say Shinty 6.
That's not
Shinty 6.
That is a real number.
That is number Wang.
Also said a letter. I said letter. You gave me a made up number.
No, it's a real number. It's in the popular expression, I only have Shinty 6 days left to live.
God damn it. Anyway, that's our show. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling
together.